a nuclear war, there don't would be any winners.
Yeah.
So, but that was the thing. But it could outfly any Russian aircraft or missile of the era. So, which is what
Outfly the missiles.
it outfly the missiles.
Did it have things like flares to deploy? If
They did have flare compartments and
Yeah.
things like that, but it could fly higher and faster than any
Really?
of the earlier, the early stuff.
Yeah.
Later, obviously, they realised, especially when the American U-2 plane was shot down, which is the really high altitude spy plane, when they developed, I think it was SAM-2, and they could start shooting those aircraft down, they realised that carrying nuclear bombs in an aircraft was probably not the best idea. So that's why it was transferred to the Polaris and the submarines. Not only that, the Blue Steel was a very difficult missile. The Americans couldn't get it to work. And the day they gave to the British took over the project, and the day they got it working was the day they cancelled the whole project.
Yeah.
And it actually had a better navigation system than the aircraft. So they used to plug, because it was being plugged into the aircraft, they would plug it in, they would fly from the navigation system of the missile rather than the aircraft.
Was Blue Steel, was that replaced by the White Knight?
There was a Skybolt that came after that.
Skybolt.
There was the Yellow Sun.
Yellow Sun, that's it.
Yellow Sun was the first one, and then
I seem
Blue
to
Steel.
remember reading somewhere that Britain had its own sort of nascent space industry at one point. It was built on the back of some of these these things, these missiles and that.
I think some of the other senior guys that were doing probably remember a lot more about. We're just moving the jacks into position for next week.
Okay. What's happening?
Next week we've got the cadets. I'll bring up the Oxford cadets, and we have the Darlaston squadron, and we're lifting the whole plane up in the air to recover the undercarriage.
We saw that on the video with the
Well, we did that in 2012 with the cadets. They loved it. But it's the first time it had been done in absolute donkey's years, before anybody else can remember. And so what the problem is that the undercarriage goes up, and it's like a housing, and it's hydraulic oil in the top. It has reservoirs in the top and bottom. So the idea being, it's like a shock absorber. So when it's on the ground, it's got all the oil which is pushed up into the top. It takes off, and the wheels come down to a certain point, and it sucks all the oil back through to the bottom to reprime it. So what's happened over the years is that a whole lot's come down, all the oil's drained out the top, and sorry, it's the other way around actually. It sucks the oil back into the top section, but so the whole suspension had sagged. So that tail skid that I showed you at the back, I used to be able to just go like that and push it up.
Yeah.
Like the aircraft, when we put it back down on the ground after lifting it up 2 years ago, it was that much higher. So I can't even. That's why I can only just about reach the skid. But what we discovered was that there appears to be. I mean, these are all rubber seals and things like that. And on the right-hand side, the aircraft is sagging a little bit more than on the left-hand side, so it's starting to go back down again. So all we need to do is just pump it back up again, and it'll last another couple of years. So we get the 4 jacks underneath. We have 4 cadets and 1 staff member on each jack. We have a pendulum hanging from here down to that point down there, mark, to keep the plane in balance. And then crew chief, he will shout, right, front pair, and the cadets will go up, and it goes up the diameter of 1 old penny.
Bloody hell.
So you've got it lifts it up then there's a locking collar, which is then wound down, and then you do the back. So it's the diameter of 1 penny, and then so it's literally going up. Well, that's about the diameter. We've got the 4 old pennies, as you know.
So it's kind of
slowly going up like this, and up to the correct height. What we tended to do was to do 1 at the front, 1 at the back, then 1 at the back, and then 1 at the front, and 1 at the front, and 1 at the back. So it was kind of double stages. But it was only ever the diameter of 1 penny. So if it did drop, it only dropped that much onto the locking collar. But that's what those Dodegoku tripods are out there.
That's all right. Fantastic.
Any other questions at all? So your friend's a Vulcan fan as well?
Oh, she absolutely loves them. We went to Dunsfold and we watched it fly with the Canadian bomber.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, she was just...
I drove all the way from Oxford down to Shoreham to see both Lancasters and the Vulcan flying together.
Yeah.
And it went techie, which in other words, they had
an engine problem, didn't they? Yeah.
And it wasn't flying.
But they flew like Lincolnshire, didn't they? It was
Yeah,
just Jane
but
taxiing
I
as well.
couldn't get to that one.
Yeah.
And it was,
Yeah.
I work over at Gaydon, and on that similar sort of time, the Vulcan came over. It was on a particular day when it was doing a tour of the UK,
yes.
and it came to Gaydon and it flew around a few times and then went off.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, the first time when it arrived at Gaydon, it did a rather large overshoot, and it actually flew over here because I got a photograph, with the front nose and Vulcan did a bank straight over the top of this aircraft, and then
that'd
back
be great.
to
It's funny though, because the first time it came over, and then it was gone for a while. And we
Yeah,
thought, is that it? And then it came back, and then it did about 4 or 5 passes, and then,
That's right,
and then carried on.
He actually came in that lapse of time. It was actually flying over here in a large loop, just saying hello to us.
Yeah, that's good. That's nice. On the last pass, it was gone for about a little bit longer than it had been, and then it came back completely broadside, whatever like that, going round. That was fantastic to see.
That was only last year that they were able to do that even that slight wing over, because previously there was a problem with the airframe.
Okay.
Where they got the first kick, he kind of goes out like that and then doubles back and then goes round. Well, on that first bend, there was a known problem with Avro. Yeah. They did modifications to quite a few of the airframes, but I don't think 558 ever received that modification. And what it meant was that over a period of time, with metal fatigue, it could break up along on that corner, that first kick. So what they had to develop was a kind of 2 panels that would fit over the top of the outer skins, that would fit absolutely perfectly, with all the rivet holes to be able to rivet everything together again to keep the wing integrity. It cost them £250,000 to do it, and they did that over the 2013 winter season. But it meant last year they cured the problem, so they could fly at a faster speed of 250 knots, and also bank the plane a lot more.
Stunning to see.
I'm sure they said at Dunsfold that the one that currently flies, it won't be able to fly much longer purely because it was either £2 or £4 million a year or something.
Well, it's not the money.
Running, and the lack of parts.
It's the lack of parts.
Yeah.
Money, they because I'm also a member of the VTTCS,
Vulcan to the Sky.
Yeah. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, we were up there. I took the 2 squadrons of the Air Cadets up to 558's hangar because I'd made one of those £1,000 bombs as a donation box to put in the hangar. It was due to go with the Vulcan Village, but they don't have enough space in the truck, so it's going to have a permanent home up in the hangar, the aircraft. So they usually get enough money to cover the operational costs. Usually beg, steal, borrow, and all the rest of that. But the main problem is the lack of engines, because they had lost those 2 engines in 2012. The only limiting factor of that, if it gets another season, will be the engine life, and they cannot. Rolls-Royce cannot do any more servicing on the engines. So they've got they're working in conjunction with Rolls-Royce, and they've got some very sophisticated computer programs which analyses all the oil circulating through, so it can tell how many parts per million of metal there is in that oil, to see how much wear there's been induced on the engine. And so they're trying to maximise the engine operations for each engine. And one of the engines which they actually thought was coming to its engine life, with this new technology, they realised that it was perfectly serviceable and could go on for quite a lot more time. And one of the engines which they thought was pristine and new, they found excessive amount of parts, corrosion, metal inside, particulates in the oil. Now, they can still run that. They put that engine in and run it over the winter to try and clear it all out to see if it flushes through, because they think it might have just been where it was built, the rebuild debris that was left inside. But I don't know what the outcome of that is. But that is going to be the Achilles. It's their engines. You cannot remanufacture the components.
You've got to just kind of see it flying while it can, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to see it with the Canadian Lancasters. So my plan is to go to Canada and fly on Vera.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I will do it.
That'd be very nice.
Yeah.
Are you going to Riyadh at all, the Royal International
No, I've never been to that. No.
I'm glad it's going back there this year, because last year they didn't. They said there was no room for it because of the F-35 Lightning II coming across from America, which never showed up.
Bloody Yanks.
And I still don't think it's flying now, is it?
I don't know.
No, I don't know. I'm more of the World War II bombers, fighter escorts than I am Cold War onwards.
Yeah.
You like your old planes, don't you?
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for your time.
If you're ever, sorry, I was going to say, if